It's been a cold fall day here in Washington, D.C. The past 2 weeks have been a true test of the people of the United States. Only just 3 days ago, Prime Minister Khrushchev pulled all 32 of his Cuban-made missiles out of the country of Cuba. It's been a chilling 13 days, and it truly has tested the strength of the Kennedy family, but also it tested the strength and courage of our own youth. Today, I'll be spending some time talking with Cheryl Reed, 15, freshman here at Wheaton High School in Washington, D.C. Hi there, Cheryl. We're reporting live from CBS News. Tell me, in the last 13 days, how's it been on you?
I think I can speak for everyone when I say it's been extremely difficult and extremely nerve-wracking. For my parents especially, because they've had to be dealing with the Soviet situation for almost 2 decades now. And I feel like when the nation heard Kennedy's address on October 22nd, saying that we were going to quarantine every ship that came to Cuba, and we're going to keep we're going to have a close watch on Cuba, and if this missile crisis continues, we would have to invade. I think everyone panicked immediately. I know for a fact that my parents went to the grocery store gathering as many groceries as they can just for the worst case scenario. I think all my friends were scared, but I think we all had faith that we could get through this.
Yeah. Well, I presume you were watching TV the other day when Adlai Stevenson put Prime Minister Khrushchev on the spot, asking him specifically if he had placed missiles in Cuba. And Khrushchev responded by saying he'll get your answer in due time, whereas Adlai said, I can wait till hell freezes over. Do you believe it was right for Cuba to be used as a pawn for the Soviet Union to place missiles?
Well, ever since I was little, we've always practiced these tests in school every week in case the worst case scenario was to happen and nuclear warfare was to be engaged between the United States. And we'd all dive under our desks pretending that the nuclear waves would hit us. And so when I found out that there was missiles in our hemisphere, of course I freaked out, and it was my worst nightmare. So I would never think that Soviet Union had a right to put missiles in Cuba and use Cuba as a pawn in this negotiation between the Soviet and the United States. It's not, Cuba had no place in this situation.
Well, as we're finding out in the last week or so, that there was a lot of backdoor negotiations that occurred in the administration, the Kennedy administration, including what we understand that Bobby Kennedy meeting secretly with the Russian ambassador to strike a deal. And what we understand in this deal is that the Soviet Union agreed to dismantle the bombs, or the missiles in Cuba with a UN oversight, with the understanding that the United States would allow Fidel Castro to set up a communist regime within Cuba, and that the United States would never attack Cuba. Do you believe this is a weak approach that the United States took in negotiations with the Soviet Union, or is this a fair attempt at appeasement?
Well, any appeasement or peace agreement that the United States can come to that will save millions of Americans' lives seems like a fair trade to me. Some people might have saw the Kennedys' actions of appeasement as weak, but I really don't. I personally don't believe that.
Well, it's been a tough time, obviously, for everybody in the United States. I know a tough time for our youth. Our future rely on our youth, obviously. And I'm sure you've had a lot of discussions with your friends. After what you've witnessed in the last few weeks, where do you think we're all going to be? Where do you think you're going to be in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, personally, I would like to see myself going to college and being the first woman in my family to graduate college, but as a nation, I think that I have faith in President Kennedy that he will lead us into an era of peace, and only good things will come out of it. I'd like to think that we can learn from our mistakes.
Thank you, Katie. My name is Drew Johnson. Walter, back to you. Good evening. My name is Jerry Fitzpatrick, reporting for Dateline NBC. It was just 13 days ago that the events of 9/11 has sent the people of the United States into a state of fear and desperation. Today we bring you a special report on the impact of these past days on the youth of America. Tonight we come to you from Portland, Oregon, and we talk one-on-one with Katie Alto, a 15-year-old freshman from Grant High School. In the last 13 days have been a very harrowing time for us Americans with the events of 9/11. And I'm here tonight to talk with our youth about their future, a little bit what's going on with you in your life. I know that there's a lot of confusion with us adults, and I'm sure as well with the youth there's a lot of confusion and concern about the future of our country. So I could start off today. Tell me how the last 13 days have affected you.
Well, it's been extremely terrifying. It's almost as if it's a numbing experience. I don't really know what to feel anymore. It's sort of like, it feels like the worst case scenario happened. And it's not just my immediate family that I have to worry about anymore. My heart goes out to everyone who was in New York and the families affected by everyone who was killed. And I feel like as if it's like the United States and Afghanistan are deciding the fate for every American out there, and we really have no control over it. And I just feel like I'm not quite sure what to do anymore, because I have no control over the situation, and these two powers are just sort of deciding if we go to war, if we don't go to war. What's going to happen?
The United States has a significant amount of technology to their disposal for defense. We have a significant amount of technology and weapons of mass destruction that America is very good at going to war and winning wars. Did you ever imagine that a means of transportation, a commercial airplane, can be used as a means of mass destruction?
I don't think anyone in their right mind would ever picture a plane killing people or being used as a weapon for harm. There was no training that could really prepare us for this event. You know, my mom used to talk about how back in the 60s and 50s, how they would have to train in case of a nuclear war attempt. But that never happened. And so the fact that a plane crashed through a building, and it just raises the whole level of security that we really have to be aware of what could happen, and it's the last place your mind wants to go to.
Obviously the last 13 days have been a very tough time for the country. It's hard to think about next week, let alone next year. And so a question I have for you, Katie, is where do you see yourself? Where do you see the United States in the next 5 or 10 years?
It is hard for anyone to really picture what's going to happen in the next year. I feel as if, I will graduate high school and I will graduate college, and hopefully I will have a position in the society where I can almost have an influence over the government, because I really feel like that's where I belong. And as President Bush being our elected official, we can hold him accountable for anything that may or may not happen within the next week, 2 years, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I have faith in him that he will lead us to an era of peace, and he won't lead us into a war where we don't feel like we can get out of it. And I feel that American citizens will finally have that faith restored. We feel like we have control over what's happening to us.
You don't believe to repeat our mistakes of the past?
I'd like to think we can learn from our mistakes.
All right. Well, that's it for Dateline NBC. My name is Jerry Fitzpatrick. Back to you.
Love of mine, someday you will die, but I'll be close behind.